I've heard some conspiracy theories about why the pilots left, but I think really it was kind of a perfect storm of things that happened, starting with financial mismanagement. Most of the money that financed the pilots was borrowed money, and so of course when you borrow money, you have to pay it back with interest, and so they had a pretty heavy debt load to begin with. The management was thinking that the game would promote itself and that they didn't really need to get out there and sell as much. The TV contract, there was no TV contract pilots. I think there was only one game that was ever televised in the Seattle area. I know, it's amazing. When you think about it now, every game is on TV, but there was one game that was ever on. The relationship with the city. So Sick's Stadium, of course, was the minor league ballpark that was remodeled for Major League Baseball. And the city had made a lot of promises as a condition of the city getting a franchise that were not followed. On opening day, they were still, literally, they were still nailing down planks for benches. And once they finished in their section, they'd let more people in. I mean, it was really that bad. They were way behind schedule. It wasn't anything like they had promised. The mayor at the time was a guy named Floyd Miller, who'd taken over when Dorm Bremen went back east to help with the administration. And he played hardball with them. He actually threatened to evict the team unless they paid the rent that was past due. So kind of a bad situation there. Dewey and Max Soriano, I've heard them vilified, and of course they were burned in effigy under the monorail when the pilots left town, but I really don't think it was their fault, but they were not as well connected within the business community as we might have seen, and so any help that might have been forthcoming in helping keep the pilots here was not forthcoming. And then the banks. So when it looked like the team was not doing well, the Bank of California was the main lender, and they said, okay, if somebody wants to buy the team, you have to pay us back in full. We're not carrying the loan anymore. So, we're talking about $4 million, which in 1969 is some pretty serious money. I wouldn't mind having it now. But so they couldn't find the money to finance it. And in fact, when you'll see Charles has some of the news clippings back there when Fred Dans from Sterling Recreation Organization tried to buy the team, and the reason that fell through was that the banks would not carry the loan. So he had to come up with an additional $4 million. And that was why when Eddie Carlson was going to buy the team and run it as a nonprofit, that's why he structured it that way, because the money was not forthcoming. So I had a chance to interview Dewey and Max Soriano before Dewey died. Max is still alive. And I asked Max, when did you know that there were problems? And he said, in early May, we had a series against the Red Sox. And of course, Carl Yastrzemski came out to push for the Dome Stadium initiative. And he said the weather was perfect. All the great players on the Red Sox, and there was about 7,000 people in the stadium. And he said, I just had a feeling then that we were going to be in trouble. And then he said in July, he looked at this, which is the projection of cash flow. And he said, I realized that we were going to be short about $2.2 million in operations, and we were not going to be able to have the kind of money to make it through the off season without the ticket revenue coming in. So I said, but Max, I read this thing, and of the $2.2 million, all but about $250,000 is depreciation of player contracts for tax purposes. That's not actually money that you lost. And he said, that's true, but Dewey and I didn't have $250,000. And so where was the money going to come from? So Bill Daly, who was a former owner of the Cleveland Indians and was the money guy behind the pilots, declined to put in more money. And in fact, he kind of had he issued an edict that the fans had one more year to come. Otherwise, that was it for the pilots. And that did not play well. And of course, Hy Zimmerman from the Times wrote a column entitled, Bill Daly, Won't You Please Go Home? And that didn't sit well with him either. And so for whatever reason, I mean, he was sort of an elderly gentleman at the time, had been around baseball for a long time, probably thought that this was going to be, this operation was going to go full steam pretty quickly, and when it didn't, he probably got frustrated. But for whatever reason, and this is one of the great mysteries, and he died in 1971, so I never had a chance to interview him, why he decided not to put more money into the team. And that's just something we'll never know, but he was the guy who really could have kept the team here. A couple of myths. You know, people have talked about pilots' attendance being low, and it was low. It was about 677,000, but it wasn't the lowest. I mean, I think it was the 5th or 6th lowest in the American League that year, and in fact, the Padres, who are the pilots' expansion brethren, didn't match the pilots' attendance until 5 years after they had been in the league, and that wasn't until they got bought by McDonald's founder Ray Kroc. And the condition of Sick's Stadium, you know, granted not a major league quality ballpark, a lot of problems with the toilets not flushing in the late innings, and a lot of things that have been chronicled in many places. But you know, I had a chance to interview Bill Dwyer, who later went on to become a federal judge, but at the time was the lawyer who sued the American League on behalf of the state, the city, and the county. And he said, you know, we sent photographers around to the, you know, maybe some of you guys could, because you actually played in some of these other stadiums. He said, we sent some photographers around to some of the other American League ballparks. And he said, I got to tell you, there were not a lot of winners there. He said, we saw a lot of the same problems that we saw in Sick's Stadium in some of the other ballparks. So that's just kind of the high-level view of why the Pilots left town. But again, I can't tell you how thrilled I am that the guys are back here today and that you guys are all here today. And I hope you're going to support the film when it comes out. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Charles. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to tell you. Charles was mentioning the when you went with Jim to Lowe's. And it was really funny because if you go down there, I think they still have, like a metal cutout, a silhouette of a batter, and he's facing the wrong way. Which, I don't know, maybe that was emblematic, I don't know. And they actually used to have a display there of memorabilia, and I'll never forget they had a picture of Don Mincher, and the caption was, Don Mercher, Pilot's pitcher. From 1970. Picture was in 1970. So thank you so much. I hope you visit SeattlePilots.com and give these guys a big hand. Thank you.